Leigh Locker is joining me from Washington, D.C. Daniel Block, Senior Editor, Foreign Affairs, is joining me from New York. Daniel, we've had you before on the show, and it appears at the moment that with these tariffs being ruled illegal, what are Donald Trump's options now? There are lots of questions over what happens to the existing tariff structure that he's put in place. Does that go away overnight, or can he go to the Senate?
Well, I think there's a few things that Trump can try to do and probably will do. It's worth saying that none of them are going to be easy or clean replacements for the tariffs. He can try and go to Congress, to the Senate and the House. I think he's going to have a tremendous amount of trouble. In fact, I'm confident saying he will not be able to replicate this tariff regime by going through Congress. There's too much opposition there. The process would be too legislatively difficult. Maybe they will sign off on some tariffs on some countries, but the broad sweeping tariffs that he implemented through this law, he will not be able to get anything like that through Congress. Now, there are other acts that the White House thinks it can use to recreate some of these tariffs. So they may try and unilaterally recreate this tariff regime under other authorities, but it's really unclear whether they'll be able to do that as well. I mean, there's a reason they went to this law first to try and create their sweeping tariff regime. They don't see the other laws as providing the same degree of flexibility, and they could do that, and the Supreme Court could again strike it down. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up seeing a kind of cat and mouse game where the White House tries going to other laws in order to impose tariffs on various countries, and then the Supreme Court again steps in and says no. That said, again, I think they will struggle to recreate this tariff regime. It's a huge loss. And of note, it's really the first time that we've seen this Supreme Court, which has been generally quite friendly to Trump, step in and say, this is something that you can't do. This is an instance where you've gone beyond your powers and beyond your authority.
Very, very interesting. Leigh Locker joining me from Washington, D.C. Has America been caught a bit by surprise? There are those who tell me, why did it take so long for the courts to decide on it? Others who are saying better late than never. What's the general mood or sense that you think how will Washington see this, particularly the U.S. Congress?
Well, Congress now has no incentive to support any kind of tariff that Trump tries to ram through. The court has ruled. People have been waiting for this for months for the court to issue its opinion. They assumed that it was going to be the tariffs were going to be thrown out, even with the 6-3, Republican appointed majority, and 3 of these justices being Trump appointees. People assumed that just on the face of it, these things were illegal, and that has been proven true. Plus, we had economic growth numbers come out. The economy only grew 2.2% in 2025, in large part because of tariffs. So why would you want to support something that's proven to be a downer in terms of economic growth? And Trump has been weakening politically, over the last few months. We saw it in the November elections where Democrats won by wide margins. We're seeing it in special elections. There's not a lot of people who want to go out on a limb for Donald Trump right now. And the fact that there's a 6-3 majority against him on the tariffs is very telling, since he stacked this court with 3 of his own people, and 2 of them, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, ruled against him.
So, but is he still spoiling for a fight? I mean, it's ironic that all of this is coming where all the attention in the last few days has been about U.S. Preparing possibly to strike at Iran. Along comes a strike now from the Supreme Court aimed at Donald Trump. Is he spoiling for a fight? Will he look for a weapon of mass distraction, possibly Iran? Or do you believe that at the moment, do you think he can really confront the Supreme Court?
He'll try. He's always spoiling for a fight. Haven't you been paying attention for the last 10 years? That's how he operates. He's always looking for a fight. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if planes were in the air over Iran right now because of this. You have the Epstein files with all that. You have this bogus board of peace in which he's shaking down foreign countries for money to do something in Gaza, which may never happen. Remember, this is a guy who is a 34-time convicted felon, okay? He lies as routinely as he breathes. He's crazy. He falls asleep. What do you expect from him? I mean, so there's not going to be a normal reaction. It's not like, oh, George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush or Ronald Reagan would get a ruling like this and say, what is the prudent thing to do? It's not how he operates. So we're not going to see something that makes sense. He's going to lash out against people, probably put some crazy social post on at 1 a.m. saying he's going to do something. I mean, it's anyone's guess. The one thing that I wouldn't do if I'm another country is rush to the negotiating table to deal with him on trade. You already know that the court says what he's doing is illegal.
You know, that's the question. Geeta Mohan, our diplomatic affairs editor, joins us. Geeta, presumably the Ministry of External Affairs will and Ministry of Commerce may well heave a sigh of relief at one level, but it also leads to uncertainty now over what happens next. The trade deal hasn't been signed. Trade negotiators are there in Washington, and lo and behold, suddenly tariffs are no longer on the table. So there is an element of uncertainty that will once again crop up. And who knows, as Ray just suggested, what Donald Trump does next?
Well, Rajdeep, I agree with Daniel and Ray completely in terms of the fact that they use IEEPA first, because that was maybe the only big option that they had in order to carry out the tariffs or weaponizing the tariffs in the manner in which Trump administration did. Having said that, we first have to wait to see, like Daniel said, there are other options that Trump administration will explore. It might go to court again, but it's again a very long, tedious process. No country would want to wait and have additional tariffs imposed on it just to see what the Supreme Court of the United States of America is going to do. In diplomacy, we'll be looking at many countries who are engaging the U.S. administration, whether it's because of the weaponization of tariffs and the impact of that, or what the Trump administration can do should they not go ahead with the conversations that they are having at this point in time. So I don't think New Delhi is looking at this as a breather as much as the companies and businesses in America are looking at the decision as a breather. So it's politically more important and comes out as a breather for Americans rather than looking outward to other countries, because most of the countries, we just interviewed President Lula of Brazil, and he said no matter what, Trump is the most powerful leader in the world, whether if he does something or doesn't do. And he's headed to Washington, D.C., despite the kind of acrimonious relationship the two leaders have had. Prime Minister Modi and President Trump have engaged as well. So most countries are going to look at trade as a bilateral issue, and that will have to be dealt with bilaterally. That's the sense I get. This is a setback for Trump, but it's a domestic setback more than anything else at this point in time.
Daniel, do you agree with that it's a domestic setback? Because lots of countries have been pushing in because of the weaponization of tariffs to sign bilateral trade deals. Some signed, for example, India's with the EU. But the question is, what happens to deals which are still in the making, like India and the United States? We don't know about that. Do you believe that the uncertainty will remain until we know what Donald Trump wants to do next? Because he likes to be in the headlines. He's determined in a way to almost spoil for a fight in some form or the other.
Yeah, I'd say right now the domestic consequences are a little bit more predictable than the international ones because, as Geeta said, there's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen with all these deals, with relations with other countries. I mean, I've seen a great deal of caution coming from other countries so far about the ruling. Granted, the ruling just came out, so it's still early, but other countries' trade councils, I think they're rightfully expressing a degree of caution and uncertainty about this because it really is unclear what Trump is going to do next. I do not think he is going to go gently on this issue. That's just not his style. That's now how he operates. I do think that there's probably a good deal of celebration happening in some foreign capitals, and rightfully so. But domestically, yeah, it's clear in that it's a huge domestic defeat for Trump. That said, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there's a possible silver lining here domestically for Trump as well, which is that the tariffs were, by most accounts, not good for the U.S. economy. They were causing some inflation. And so now they're gone. So you could paradoxically have a situation where this even as it's a big political defeat for Trump, helps his approval ratings in some way because it improves the economic standing of ordinary Americans. Now that's looking several, steps down the road, so who knows if that will really happen. But there is a
Right.
possible silver lining here for him as well.
What we're seeing is U.S. stocks are already up, and there's a sense that they could have a very strong recovery, particularly those stocks which were hit by the uncertainty that the tariff regime provoked. A final word from you, Ray. It's impossible to crystal gaze with Donald Trump. You just don't know what will happen next. But do you see him, as I said at the outset, doing something dramatic to shift attention from this domestic loss of sorts or a loss of face?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know what it could be, but that's how he operates. And I don't even know if he does that consciously. I think he just goes from one thing to another because that's just the way he thinks. So it could be anything. I wouldn't be resting easily if I was in Tehran right now because he might want to do something big there. He's been steadily inching toward that, moving ships closer and closer in the Persian Gulf. So maybe we see something there, or maybe we don't see anything. It's just hard to say.
Right.